We're good?
We're good.
All right, everybody, in Pensado students and anyone else who entered the mixed competition, we're joined by Matt Weiss, Benny Grotto, and Marco, I think it's Angioni. I'm a shithead when it comes to other people's names.
Perfect.
All right. Hell yeah, I'm ready for Italy. So, or in your case, Denmark. We're here with all three of these guys that did the top 5 mixers. We don't have John, Rook, or Nori. They might pop in, but we do urge you to ask any questions you have, but we're going to go ahead and ask some questions to get started. To start off with, one thing that really stood out to me about in Pensado students. Wait, why are we hearing mixed competition? Are you monitoring it? Benny Grotto and Marco, I think it's Andrew.
Why are we worst?
Sorry, hold on, technical difficulty.
All right.
Those 20 bar delays.
Is there an engineer in the house?
No. Top 5 mixers. I just know how to pro tools, man.
The convention that I went to yesterday had a panel with Bob Clearmountain and Bob Ludwig and Frank Filippetti and Jimmy Douglas and bunch of other big heavyweight dudes, and the audio sucked. It was hilarious.
That is funny.
Feedback, people's mics kept dropping out, and this is an audio convention. Obviously, no one could get the shit together.
That's
good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering that, like you said, who's in the room. It's
Totally.
not like you have Bob Clearmountain in the room, and fix it. But the first question I actually had was for Matthew. I was very curious on how you approach the overheads on the drums, because I felt like you had the right amount of push in the upper mids and highs without being obnoxious, and I was curious how you approach that.
Well, since I sure as hell don't remember, let's take a look. Looks like I've got they're time aligned to each other using auto align. That's some pretty basic shit. I've got 2 tracks actually for the overheads. They're both coming down to these unlabeled auxes because I'm like that. Let's see, scooping out a couple of annoying tones here. I'm imagining you guys can see this. Something bugged me at around 600 and something at around 1300. It's probably not a coincidence that they're close together. Little compression. Some center to pull the sides out a little bit. And apparently, here's the big move, I guess. There was unhappy balances between some of the cymbal articulation, so I have a big multiband compressor here that's telling it to stay in place. This other track here that's below it is actually just a reverb return. It's cleverly disguised as me copying the entire thing and making it look complicated, but it's actually just Altiverb.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, when you blended those in, were you did you do the theory of overheads and then bring in the close mics to support the overheads, or was it more the overheads to support the close mics?
It was. I started trying to do it with the drums to support the overheads, like in a sort of get a more natural drum capture. But I didn't like what I was getting, so I ended up triggering some samples underneath the snare and the kick. And because I was doing that, I had to get the snare and the kick close mics to blend with the samples first. So it ended up being the other way around, where I was working the overheads into the close mics.
Gotcha. Am I the only person having a hard time with Matthew's feed? Does it sound Mr. Roboto to everyone else?
Sounds all right to me. I mean, as good as it could sound for that hack, but
Well, yeah. I mean, So it's not coming out stereo. You should hear like the guitar on the far left.
I actually have everything on just the left side.
Well, that's not. That's not correct. That's not what it's supposed to be.
I mean, voice the voice is included as well. You guys talking?
Well, that might just be your stupid fault.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I've got a mono feed going to you guys. That's pretty useless.
No, man, it translates. That's check your mixes in mono. Lesson learned.
I don't check my mixes in mono.
Do you check your mixes at all? Doesn't sound like it.
No.
God.
Not even a little. I just assume everything I do is right, and so far, for about 7 years, I've been correct.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
That's the only thing I can think of that would be messing me up.
The other question we had was for Benny on the horns.
Mm-hmm.
You got some real good vibe out of them, and they were fun and lively.
Yep.
And I was curious, and obviously now that I know you come from a ska background, I can see that's what you've worked with a lot of horns before. What was your approach on that?
Let me look at my Pro Tools session, and I will tell you. When I do that, does it go to my Pro Tools screen, or is that something fancy that Matt hooked up for himself?
If you click on screen share on the left there, just below the chat window.
Talk slowly to him.
Yeah,
should
talk
be able
slowly,
to-
man.
You have to hit 3 things, so this is going to be really rough for you.
Screen share. Select a window. Ah, I see. Ah, groovy. Okay, cool. I did it.
Yep.
Did I do it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
Good track organization. Everything's yellow. Makes sense.
Don't fucking start with me, man.
Sorry, this is just a
Alright.
little continuation.
Another audio feed. For us.
That's actually a really good point. No, that's totally fair. I got a bunch of crap opening up on my thing. It's bugging me. Okay, I think I got it together now. Horns are here. What the hell did I do? That. Can you all see that?
No.
Oh shit! What am I doing? No, you're not seeing an open EQ?
No.
No.
Lame.
Did you see mine when I did it?
No. Oh,
No.
you know what?
Oh, you have to use the screen share thing, I bet you.
Okay, hold on a second. I don't know what the hell's going on, man.
Under the screen share, there should be something that lets you do share entire screen, but you're going to have to, when you hit that, you have to get rid of Google Hangouts or you get the infinite thing, and then if you see in my screen, if I pull up an EQ, you see it now, right?
Wait. Okay, I see an EQ on yours, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to share the entire screen and then minimize Google Hangouts.
Because of wireless instead.
Okay. Oh, hey, look at that. Interesting. Is that working?
No.
Jesus Christ. All right, well, I can just tell you what I did, I guess, unless you guys... Why don't you ask another question to someone else, and I'll try to figure this thing out.
All right, cool. Marco, when you approached the guitars, you were one of the only people that got the use modulation, and it was a little more than normal, but it was cool, and you kind of went on a risk with that. And did you use a flanger on one guitar and a chorus on the other? What was your approach there?
Exactly. I used a phaser on the basic rhythm guitar, the one that should be on the right side, and the flanger on the left side, on the arpeggio guitar.
Okay. And when you did create some width that may not have been there with just the basic tracks because the piano was mono?
My main idea of the mix was to have a reggae sounding mix, and I missed the keyboard synth doing that phasey chords. So I just used your rhythm guitar for that and put it on the right side.
Gotcha.
Then the flange guitar, I think I thought it was somehow half leadish, half lead guitar, so I put it on the left side with a flanger, a flanger, so it would stick out a little bit more.
Cool. All right. Now one more question from going back to Matt again on the vocals. When you approach processing them, was there a lot of rides, or did you do any automation, or was it one of those things where you compressed, EQ compressed, or what was your approach?
I don't think I did a lot of rides because Benny challenged me to do the thing in 2.5 hours. So there wasn't a lot of time for it. The vocal looks like I really only just had one track, so no parallel processing of any sort. Taken out low end, no surprise. Multi-band to get rid of the mid because the normal EQ just kind of left it a little thin. So I didn't want to do that. And then I used, I picked this up recently. I'm hoping everybody can see this now.
Yep.
You can see my plugins, right?
Yes.
This is the Sturge's compression thing called gain reduction, which is like the weakest name for a plugin ever, but it's awesome. And it's like a really aggressive, like quick, distorty, saturate-y kind of thing. So it's not just that I'm doing some compression on it. It's that I'm also doing like a little bit of saturation to kind of enhance the presence, and that plugin kind of does both at once. And then clariphonic EQ instead of regular EQ, just because it has that shimmery kind of sound to it. And I think that's even one of the settings. God, I'm so weak.
You just preset it?
Well, I mean, it's basically presets. Like this,
Yeah.
It only really has. I'm not using the focus one at all. It looks like it's up, but it's out. It's not in. So I'm actually only doing. I'm using the Silk setting actually, which is the super high-end, like 30K band.
Yep.
But the slope is so wide that you can. It affects the lower frequency spectrum, and I've got it up about halfway. I think it just did like a subtle lift that just made it sound like, oh, somebody hit the better button. I can before and after.
I like that. Better button. Click.
She's got nothing left to smile about it, took it all. She's got nothing left to smile about it, took it all.
I bet that didn't translate across the internet at all. It translates here, and then a de-esser, which is for de-essing. So basically I just processed it. Like, I don't know what else to say more than that. There's some reverb, and there's triggered delays.
And when you did those delays, did you you obviously picked points where they were going to be. Did you also take spots where you were just like, well, that word's one too many and dump it, or just let it eat?
Yeah, when I did my first pass, I was just hitting the mute off and on to trigger the delays, and when I went back, there were definitely a few of them where I was like, this one doesn't really need to be echoing out. So I erased a bunch of them afterwards, and the, let's see, it's, I think it's, nope, it's not that one. It's this one. Yeah, so this is, you can see on this track where all of my my delay throws are.
Okay, cool.
The end. Oh, the infinite hangout.
I love that, man. It's far out.
There we go.
All right, well, Benny, you got your console set again?
I think I did. Here, let me do this real quick.
See if you figure it
Is that working? Is it happening?
What the heck?
It's trying.
It's trying?
I just see a person.
Oh, weird.
Something that looks like a ghost drawn onto Pro Q2.
Oh, dude, take a screenshot. I want to see that. That's cool. It's they're trying to communicate with us, man.
You did that. Don't pretend like this is something that just randomly happened. What is going on in this picture?
I don't know what I'm doing. What?
Oh, there we
All right,
go.
hold on. Wait,
There's
so now what's going
something.
on? All right,
That's what you did to the horns?
There's Matt going infinite, right? Okay. So if I minimize this thing, are we on Pro Tools?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Whoa!
Okay, no, that's just the trumpet. So I got that. I was fighting with the mid range a lot in general on a lot of the tracks. So there's some weird mid range moves. This is only a 6 dB resolution, so it's actually not quite as ridiculous of a boost as it looks like. It's like 6 dB basically.
Gotcha.
So that's trumpet. A little compression. I don't know if it was doing much. I don't remember it doing all that much, but can't really remember. 5 or 6 dB it looks like. This is the track labeled Mellow, which I'm not actually sure what it is anymore.
Right?
What's that?
It's a trumpet with a palm mute,
It's
right?
a mellow
Is that what it is? Okay, cool. And then I got
type of horn.
another trumpet here with this, I guess, kind of a similar thing on this one, just that big, crazy mid-range boost. And then saxophone here, just add a little bit of breath. There was a kind of a weird zing in the upper mids, which happens a lot in my experience when people are recording saxophones. You get this zing that you got to suck out. Otherwise, just kind of, it's like you want to turn it up louder, and then it ends up stepping all over everything, and it sounds weirdly, like it always sounds close no matter how much you turn it down. It's a weird thing. So, cut a big hole in there. It's like you do the shelf thing to bring out some of the breathiness.
The one thing I was noticing about it is it looked. Okay.
What's that?
I said the thing I was noticing about it is it just visually it doesn't look like you're afraid to make big EQ moves with horns, and that's something that I'm afraid of, and I probably have messed up in the past is just being clumsy about, well, can I cut the shit out of this thing, or was it just booms? And obviously you can cut the shit out of it because it sounds great.
Yeah, well, I think the real mojo thing is coming from, I got them all grouped together to a bus, and I've got Decapitator happening.
Setting, which is the best setting for all things brass.
Oh, is that a fact?
Fact. I think I have the same thing. Yep, I have Decapitator with the E setting on all of my horns.
Nice, awesome. And I don't think I'm hitting it that hard.
Okay, cool.
I mean, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's like kissing zero and nothing crazy. And then, actually, this is one of my secret horn tricks, so you guys know, is spring reverb. I use the DigiDesign plugin because I did this thing all in the box, but I actually have I don't know if you can. You can't see it now because of the screen share, but I have a outboard spring reverb here that I really dig. But I wasn't doing this on my usual rig, so I didn't use it. I just used the plugin, which is actually kind of an awesome plugin in my opinion.
Is it Tapco joint?
What's that?
Is it that cheap Tapco joint that has like it just sounds super cool, but it's like a $150 reverb or something?
No, it's this kinky. Here, I'll bring it up on the screen here. I think I can do one of these. It's, well, you can barely see the thing with all the glare and all the patch cables hanging over. It's a company called Mic Mix. It's called the Master Room XL305. They made another one that was, I think, model number 205. It's a little less expensive, but they were made right around 1980. And you can find them on eBay for like really, really, really cheap, and they sound fucking great. It doesn't sound like a spring. It's like, I mean, we got a plate at my studio, which I'm obviously not at right now, and this thing rivals the plate easily, and that's saying something for a tiny little box. It takes up about 1/100th of the amount of space that the plate takes up. So it's got that going for it.
Do you guys have questions for each other at all?
I was going to ask Benny about the horns and also the reverb on his horns because
yeah, let me look at what I did.
Yeah, it was super lively, but I mean, I guess those questions got answered.
Well, you know what? I did something kind of strange. It looks like I must have added that subgroup. Here, let me bring up the screen share thing again. Doink. Oh, there we go. Far out, man. All right. It looks like I did I kind of have a lot. I mean, I was really the recordings. It sounded like you guys were in a pretty small, dead room. So I wasn't getting a lot of like feeling of space or air. And usually when I'm tracking, I lean pretty heavy on room mics. So I did end up doing like probably a little bit more reverb than I might normally would have on a regular mix. But I've got a plate on these three guys, which is trumpet, mellow, and trumpet 2. I've got a hall on the first trumpet, and I got micro shift on everything, which is awesome for when stuff is not quite happening in the mid range. You tuck a little bit of a modulation in there, and I happen to like make micro shift a lot. And it just kind of blurs it in a nice way.
Dope. Yeah, because my trumpets kind of suck compared to yours, so now I know why. I just really undertreated them at the end of the day.
Well, in truth be told, the room we track in is very dead and small.
Yep.
We kind of favor to have a bigger control room and a smaller tracking room, kind of like a little ISO thing.
Yep.
It's one of the only things that we tend to have to hurdle because you really want a lively room, but to afford something like that or the time in a room like that was kind of difficult for us.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of home guys. So the idea that you cover the concept of trying to emulate what would happen in a nice room with someone that's usually recording in a dead room is cool, and the fact that that you put your session up there, people can look at it and say, oh yeah, you do have to make big reverb moves to get yourself in that realm. And,
right.
And that's what I really liked about your recording is the ambience was awesome. And the same thing with like now on the Matthew Weiss side of things, yours was drier in a sense to me, but it had that blanket thing going on. Like we talk about like this like warm, comfortable wool blanket. It has almost an analog feel, and I wonder how much of that you said you sound replaced the kick.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that do you think contributed to that low push that kind of softened up the whole vibe?
A lot. I mean,
a lot.
You know, the problem with tracking in a small dead space is not just the fact that the space is dead; it's also the fact that everything is going to sit in the same place.
Yeah.
Like, acoustically, and so getting front to back depth becomes really tricky. Being able to have two kicks, because I actually didn't replace the sample. The sample is with the other sample, and by having those two different sounds, you can sort of oddly, without reverb, kind of create this sort of front to back thing going on. And I think you can hear it in my mix. And the same thing with the snare drum. The difference in timing, the slight difference in timing, and the difference in recording environment just naturally adds dimension. And then the bass, I think, I really think I like the bass sound a lot. I have to go back and take a look. See if so I've got your DI bass here, and I'm using Guitar Rig, which is like, I love that plugin. And I was messing with that, and I came up with a bass tone that was just like super cool to my ear. So between those two things, the low end really filled out. And once you fill out the low end, filling out the stuff above it it's easier to tell what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And I feel like also like when you got the low end to work, you didn't feel like it was necessary, and that's something that stood out about your mix for us, is it didn't seem like it was necessary for you to build this bright tower on top of it. Just more so, it almost felt like things were moving forward and back a lot. Almost, it felt like you were riding faders, but it may not have been the case. But like, like you picked a hero for a portion of a song. Like, here, look at this, because that's what you're supposed to be looking at. Here, look at this. And there was a lot of that in your mix. And was this you deliberately pushing things forward in the foreground at different points in the song, or did it just unfold that way?
It's a combination of both. It's, nothing really happened by accident exactly, but there are fader rides, just general fader rides, not like micromanagement fader rides that you would do on vocals or something like that. But with the drums on certain downbeats, I'm pushing up the faders, and then when the certain elements take a solo, they come up and stuff like that. And then the other thing is the bus compression and the various compression things that I do have this natural way of kind of doing that for you a little bit and helping that along. So it lets me be a little lazier with my precision on things. So it's both. The end.
I think we lost the news on that.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. And does anybody have any questions for anybody else? Because I don't know if we're getting many questions online. Have you seen any?
Just one about the Bill Kendrick wanted to know if we had any remixes posted online.
Oh yeah, all 5 are on there.
Of the sessions.
The sessions. We have 2 sessions online at the website.
I got questions for a couple people. Since there's a couple people, I got questions for everybody actually.
Who's that in the background? You got a cat or a dog?
It's a dog, Benny.
All I can see is like this teeny little thing sticking out, so I couldn't see if it was big or little.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, gosh, I mean, I know you're out of it, but you don't know the dog? Christ. I guess my question to both Marco and Benny would be, when we do these mixes, especially when we do them fast, there tends to be one thing that we hit and go like, oh yeah, I nailed that. I got that right. And it also tends to be something that other people will oftentimes overlook. So my question is, what do you feel in your mix was that for you? And that's to both.
Take it away, Marco. You first.
Okay. Oh, that's a very difficult question because actually I can't recall the moment when I said, "Oh, okay, I'm starting to go somewhere." Um, I think it was the balance between the drums and the bass. I said, "Okay, there is something happening," and when all the other instruments were put over, I realized that the bass, especially in the verses, was too loud. So if you check my session, you can see that there is some automation in the bass and in the bass pass. It's like I think it's 2 dB quieter in the verses. Then in the chorus, it's pushed up 2 dBs, and then when there is that yeah, how you call it, special section with all the small percussion, the bass goes down 1 dB, and then another 1 dB lower when the verses are coming in again. And I think that's the moment when I said, yeah, okay, I'm going somewhere. That's
Cool.
That's a pretty decent balance I'm having here. And one other thing, I think my main goal also was to have really deep reggae-ish sound bass, but also trying to keep it open because of all those subtle things that were happening in the bass rhythm in the chorus. So yeah, I think that's the end.
So I guess it's my turn then.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. I was actually pretty psyched with what I got going with the drums, especially when they go into the like kind of more 2 and 4 grooves, not the marchy stuff in the verses. I had this kind of weird. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I don't know if it's going to be all that obvious.
God, it's so close to the screen.
Ooh. I'm on a laptop, man. What do you want?
You to back the fuck up.
Fair enough. Give me a moment. Here, we'll give you.
This is the 18-year-old mustache, man.
Dude, I haven't shaved. It's part of my Halloween costume. I just haven't like finished it yet. All right, so I think are we seeing Pro Tools right now?
Yes.
Groovy. All right. For some reason, it didn't go into its weird like psychedelic mode there. Anyway, so I'll find an example here. So I created this group of distorted drum buses all in parallel. I've got my main drum group here, and then these guys come in and out, and they're just basically smashed. Like one of them's a decapitator, crunchy as hell, and the other one is a one of them's Devil Lock, and the other one's a decapitator. And I just kind of muted them in and out for different sections. And when it gets to this part, actually. Probably not translating all that well over the internet, but
Or at all.
Or at all, yeah. There's a bunch of distortion that opens up. You can kind of hear it in the sides more than anything, and then it's really obvious during those parts. You kind of hear this cool like low end push from the kick drum. It makes it sound like the room's a little bit bigger than it is, or that there are room mics, I should say. So that was the thing I was pretty psyched on.
Benny invented a room.
Yeah, I do that a lot. The setup we got in my studio has been a very dead room because we haven't gotten our live room built yet. So I've been finding all these ways to like invent a space.
Okay.
All right.
So let me ask another question. I had another question actually for everybody. Usually when you step into a mix, there's an element that's so damn challenging you just want to mute it and leave it. Just say, you know what, this doesn't belong in the song. And don't say my vocal because it'll hurt my feelings. What is it that what element were you like, you know what, this is just, why is this here?
Percussion.
Percussion.
I thought the percussion was cool. I was fighting the intro fiddle, which I actually, in fact, did mute because I couldn't figure out a way to make it work.
See,
I got you. How about you, Marco?
All the time, Benny. The intro fiddle was fine. Fool. Again, when you hear the percussion section, it's just the percussion's just like, there it is.
There it is.
And
That sounds cool. I like the percussion.
well, you guys made it make sense. I just heard a whole bunch of it, and I was like, there's a rhythm in here somewhere, but I'm not grabbing it. Like, I think I even told you when we were like on Facebook chat or something. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do with the percussion stuff. It's just I can't get it together. And you were like, tough shit.
Sounds about like my answer would have been.
Yeah. You just stop being a bitch about it and figure it out. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
I think that percussion section comes together with the bass. If you take the bass out, all that section falls apart to me.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
you put the bass in again, then there is something, a glue that holds everything together.
Wow. That makes so much sense. I'm such a fool.
You blew it.
And I spent so much time on the bass too. That's why it's so obvious. It's like a Where's Waldo? Like, except for Waldo being a little bigger than everyone else.
Yeah, we go over to there. For me personally, when I do our stuff, I run into stuff all the time where I feel like there's so much frequency competition between. I have a hard time with keyboards in general, like pianos or keyboards at all. And I think it's because they're such a full range instrument, and when there's too much low end, they compete with the bass. When there's too much mid range, they eat the vocal. When there's too much highs, they eat the cymbals. How do you guys usually approach your piano keyboard thing? Now let's start with Benny, I guess, because you're on the farthest left.
You know, I was just working on a record that's like a Ben Foldsy kind of piano pop thing, so this is very fresh in my mind. And my usual move with pianos is or kind of just pianos in particular is like I like to do a parallel compression thing. There's a trick they used to do on Elton John records where they would grab a Pultec and crank up like 10K and 100 hertz and run that into a compressor in parallel. And that you can kind of tuck that in. You get all this density and you get like a cool attack from the Pultec top end. And that can really help a lot. I think though the big thing for me is I always find that I want pianos need to be a little bit more honky sounding than you think they should be in solo. Like the thing I was just working on, I had what I thought was a really cool piano sound, but every time I'd solo it would sound great, and then I'd put it in the mix and I'm like, it feels kind of lame. Like it's not filling, it doesn't sound big enough, and adding low end just made it muddy. So I ended up jacking up like 500 hertz on it, which is not a frequency you often boost, I guess. And it just filled it out really well, and I kind of find myself doing that a lot, where I pull out some kind of weird mid-range thing that should sound kind of crappy, and in context just kind of works. Cool.
About you, Marco, how do you approach it?
Well, in a way, I am with Benny with this, but my approach is to I'm thinking mostly the piano as a percussion instrument. So I'm fiddling a lot with the compression attack until I get an even balance between the attack of the notes and the decay. And then I'm kind of, in your case, in losing pieces, if you solo the piano, I think you can find the piano not honky, but kind of closed in sound. It's not open. It's not an open, real piano. It's just it's a closed down piano sound with smoothed out attacks. So yeah, usually that's my approach.
Cool. And Matt, how do you approach keys and pianos?
It starts for me with figuring out what the role of the piano or key, or really it applies to kind of any dense lead or any dense instrument. And if it's like a piano pop ballad type of thing where the piano is obviously supposed to be in the front, then I usually just kind of let the piano more or less be what it is. And, to correct whatever weirdnesses might be coming from the tracking or something like that, but otherwise I kind of just live and let live. But if it's something where the piano is meant to augment and fill out the arrangement, then it's kind of what Benny said, where, you have to do your EQing with everything else in, kind of save it for the end, because it's not really about what you want from it, it's more like what you need to get out of the way. So, and that when you do that, with everything else in context, and then you solo the piano, usually the reaction is like, this sounds really weird. But then when you bring it back into the mix, it's like, no, everything that you need to hear from the piano is what you're hearing, and then everything you don't need for the mix is out of the way, and it's okay because there's something else there that's kind of doing what it needs to do.
Cool. And then I had another question.
Actually, I got a quick question for you, Ryan, about the keyboards. Was that a virtual instrument or was that a real piano?
That was actually a Nord, but we only had the mono sample, so we kind of screwed the pooch on that.
Yep.
And that's we were a little bummed by because we liked the performance so much, and we cut it with the Nord, and we went into the console and we went in mono, and that's all the patch was mono.
Yeah.
But the performance was nailed, so we were like, shit, hopefully someone can figure this out, because we can't. And
I just checked.
I would add that... Oh, what's that?
Oh, sorry.
After you, sir.
Okay, I just checked my plugin. I don't have all those fancy features. I have to go back to the other computer for checking my settings. I actually just... rolled down around 1.5K, 3 dBs down, and a fast ventral compression. That's all I did on the piano, and
cool.
Then some reverb for adding a little bit of space.
So you cut 1.5K?
Yeah.
That's funny. See, mine here is I boosted that same area, so it's kind of one of those funny things. That's a 3 dB boost there on the 1.5 and about 4 dB at 200.
Yeah, that's funny. I cut 3 dBs down at 1.5.
Yeah, that's really funny. So one of the things that I also actually I really love this decapitator plugin a lot. So I've got some of that happening too on the piano as well. Is that Matt? Is the a Matt Weiss approved setting for a piano?
That depends. Are you using it or just in general?
Excellent point. One of the things that with digital pianos especially that's a little bit more trickier is it's really hard to like brighten them up without them suddenly becoming very obviously digital. So you gotta. What I tend to do is I'll kind of push a piano. This is actually good for any instrument where you feel like you're fighting it. If you kind of sneak it up, if you have your arrangement going, kind of sneak the fader up, and as soon as it starts to get muddy sounding, and by the way, you're listening to the whole mix, or maybe even everything but the instrument that you're pushing up in this case. When things start to get blurry or muddy, whatever that frequency range is starting to cloud up is the one you're going to want to grab and cut, or alternatively, you can start creeping it up, and when it gets a little bit muddy, you duck it back down again, and then grab an EQ and boost that, and you kind of sweep around until it pops out without creating that mud. But that way, to my ear at least, when I'm doing it like that, I kind of get like the low end and the low mids kind of where they need to be without overdoing it, and then I can pull the part of the mid range out that I need to be more apparent. If you think of an EQ like a bunch of faders that are just they're volume faders for frequency ranges. You kind of, if you flip your mind around like that, it gets a little easier to start balancing some stuff because you're not sitting there going, oh, how do I need the EQ? It's not so much do I need 5K. It's like I need that particular range of the instrument to be louder, and I don't know if that's a trick that would work for anyone else, but it works really well for me.
Cool. The other question I had too is a lot of people have different approaches on how when they first go to a mix. If I'm doing someone else's stuff, I don't know what the song is, so I throw all the faders up, I hit play, and just wait to see what happens, and then start diving into it. Now, if it's my own stuff, I already know what's there. When you guys get stuff, are you listening through with all faders up, or do you start? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and I wonder that because a lot of guys they'll say I start with the drums and then I go to the bass. And the thing that always gets weird to me is if you're going to build the band first and then just squeeze the vocal in, never made sense to me. And so
I
go ahead.
always try to put I do a faders up mix that it tells you a lot of information. It tells you how the song goes, which is pretty much the most important important thing. It's the whole point of why are you going to do a mix? You have a song, and so you need to figure out what the hell to do with it. But it's also a really good way to figure out kind of quickly what parts conflict, what's working musically, what's maybe not working musically. You learn the arrangement, you learn the lyrics, which hopefully you're listening to and making mixed decisions accordingly. And you start to hear if there's an issue with tracking, like if you put up, for like just using this particular song as example, the kick drum was like really mid-rangey. And when I first put the kick drum, when I'm building the balance up, I wasn't getting any kind of thump out of the kick, so I kept like turning it up louder, and I just get this weird mid-range thing. But I nuked the mid-range on that kick drum and ended up with like a really cool kick sound. I didn't use a sample, just like to throw that one out there. So there's actually, well, okay, here's the second. So you got your faders up, and you as you're doing this rough mix, you might make a couple really obvious EQ moves, like you put everything up and the kick drum's really mid-rangey, so you nuke the mid-range on the kick drum, but then you're still listening to everything. Once I've got a sense of the balance, then I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna start with the drums like 99% of everyone else it seems to do in the world. But you're always, if you're playing with something in solo, you're constantly unsoloing it and listening to how your changes that you're making sound in context, because that's really the only thing that matters. And a lot of times too, I find that, like, let's say you've got a weird resonance in your snare drum that's bumming you out when you solo it. A lot of times the rest of the arrangement has enough mid-range stuff happening that particular problem gets masked by the rest of the mix, and then you don't have to sit there and EQ the crap out of the snare drum, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what a snare drum sounds like when you do like a bunch of little narrow cuts, when you try to pull out every ring, and it seems like it sounds pretty cool in solo, and then when you listen back the next day, you're like, why does the snare drum sound completely crappy and fake,
Yeah.
All right, and then another question I had, and whoever wants to answer it can. When you're mixing, a lot of people discuss having something on the tubas, taking stuff off the tubas. How much of a thought in the forefront of your head is volume and gluing everything together when you start? Is this do you start?
When you say volume, you mean like loudness?
Well, yeah. I mean a lot. Like it's almost like
He is, Benny.
yeah. It like are they mixing? Are you mixing through a compressor from the gate?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, the compressor goes on. And this was a weird one. Again, since I did this one in the box, it was a way different routine than what I normally do. I have this whole so my in my opinion, Michael Brower is a godlike genius, and
Is it a cat or a dog?
that's a cat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's hanging out on my record player, it looks like. Anyway, yeah, so Michael Brower is the greatest mixer on the planet, and his approach is this whole multi-bus thing that kind of inspired me to experiment with that a little bit. So that's normally what I do, but I didn't do it on this one because I was in the box, and you can't really do the multi-bus thing in the box as effectively as maybe you would want to. So in this case, I don't even know if I had a mix bus compressor on there. I might have thrown something on. Oh yeah, I do. I got a little bit of a Pro, what is it? The Pro C, the Fab Filter compressor, which is very unusual. Usually, I've usually got a Dramastic Obsidian rocking on there because I have a hard time with software compressors on the mix or on any bus really. But this was just kind of a quick thing for fun, so I didn't get too crazy with the audio. I guess I should have because Matt beat me, and that infuriates me.
All right, now Marco, do you mix through a compressor? Marco, do you mix through a compressor? Or?
Yeah, actually, it's quite funny because I think my approach is to this mix is totally different from Benny's and Matthew's. I used really, I think, 1, maximum 2 plugins for every instrument. Then I bussed everything, like a bus for drums, a bus for percussions, a bus for bass, a bus for the 3 guitars, and then a bus for the brass section. And but there is not many plugins. But but on the master bus, I have an EQ for gently boosting from. I have to check that out. Sorry. Hi. Where it is?
Hey.
Yeah, I have an API 550, the Waves version, and it's boosting 2 dBs from 5K on the master pass. And then the G-Bus compressor from Waves I used. I think it's kind of a. I think I just used the default and adjusted the threshold, and I used isotope for adding a little bit of final compression and adjusting the EQ, the general EQ. But yeah, I think I used 4 plugins for the master bus compressor and 1, maximum 2 plugins for every other channel.
All right, cool. Now, Matt, did you mix through a compressor?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Usually I mix through, I'll do my faders up mix, and I'll set a compressor after I do like just the faders. And then I'll tear down and I'll rebuild the mix through the compression. But I also kind of have to determine, like I take a guess at what kind of compression, if any, is going to be needed. And I had to open up another session because I pretty much have to bail in like a second.
Okay.
But I think I did. I think that I mixed through the Red from Slate Digital, which is a software compressor, and I had the high pass filter up to like 140 hertz or something super high like that. I guess that's not really super high. I guess it's all relative. And then sometimes I mix through EQ too, which that was a Brower thing that Brower just throws on the clariphonic at the beginning of his mixes a lot of times and just turns it up. And
He's actually got different EQs on each one of his subgroups too.
oh yeah, and he's got EQs on his subgroups and things like that. So sometimes I'll do that too, but then it all depends on what the faders up mix is telling me.
Cool. So you deviate your approach based upon what you hear with the faders up, and then you determine where you're going to go. All right, That's cool. Awesome. All right. Does anybody else, any questions online? All right. Unless anybody else has any questions, I figure this is good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Cool. Everybody, you guys did a wonderful job. We appreciate your time and energy to do it, and I know a lot of the guys are excited because they get to see how they stand up against dudes that are getting the work they want. And that's a really cool thing. You got the bedroom warrior at home, and he's going, "Hey, man, I was this close to getting the job," And so, well, obviously it's not a job; it's an award, but you know how it is. But appreciate you guys very much, and we enjoy all your work and everything you guys have done. And thanks for the sessions, guys. And next time, cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna plug one thing real quick if that's cool.
Sure.
Just because we're talking about mixes and things like that. Andrew William Spence over at Pensado Students, he started a mix critique group. It is called Mix Critique, and if people are interested in getting feedback from the other folks on their mixes, that's a really good place to do it.
I'm a member of that group. It's awesome. Andrew's doing a great job with that. Oh, and one last question for Matthew before you have to run.
Okay.
You do a mix with the hip-hop series or mixed hip-hop series?
Yes.
You have any plans on doing a mixing the band series, like live instruments with bands?
Well, I would love to do it because I really I'm sort of pigeonholing myself into hip-hop by doing a lot of hip-hop content.
Yeah.
There's so much material that's already been covered on mixing rock and roll and mixing live band kind of stuff that I'm not sure that it's necessary that I do it. Charles Dye has an excellent series that involves that. I'm sure there's many others too, and I feel like I see it filtering around the internets plenty. The next one I think I'm going to do is going to be EDM because I haven't seen a tutorial that I felt really represented EDM mixing very well.
Cool. Well, all that aside, you did a wonderful job with live instruments. I thought you did great work. It's awesome.
I love live instrument mixing. And there's a real art to it, and maybe I'll do one just to let people know what my approach is to it. But if people want to learn mixing rock, there's plenty of resources out there, or hire Benny to teach them. You know what I mean? For real, actually, I'd almost rather hear a rock mixing tutorial from Benny than from myself, because I just got a bunch of stuff from that he did previously because the client was making him crazy, and now I'm doing it. And now I'm doing it. And his mixes are awesome. Like, they're really good. They're much better than mine. But I'm just trying to cater as much to the client's tastes as possible.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Well, I was just curious about that because there was like I said, there's a lot of excitement in that. And with Benny's mix, my bass player told me to tell you, because he's a huge Weird Al fan, that he's rooting for you and he hopes you get that grand. So
Awesome.
He's real excited. It's like one of his favorite things in the world. And I actually own an accordion, so we know how difficult it is to play the instrument. So we have this huge respect for Weird Al. We're like, damn, that thing is hard to play. So. But, all right, man, we'll see you guys later, and thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure everyone appreciates it. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. Peace, yeah.
Thank you.